focus on is all of the schemes, frauds, financial crimes. Rob's pretty much an expert on powers of attorney and things like that when it comes to elder abuse and other types of crimes like that. I'm a little more nerdy on the cryptocurrency and sort of advanced schemes with this electronic currency nonsense that's going on in the world. A lot of us have quite a bit of obviously weapons handling experience, so we can get into some of that and talk about some of that if you guys want. Rob started off with a wheel gun. If you don't know what a wheel gun is, it's a revolver. So true story, literally true story. Yeah, so we can jump right in. You guys good? Any questions to start off with? No? Okay, all right.
I have one. When you say financial crimes, I jump to like banks or something.
Yes, yeah.
But I think it's broader than that, right?
Yeah, the umbrella.
I think if I miss anything.
It can be those interpersonal type of financial crimes where I'm my mother's caregiver and I take advantage of her, or my father, I take advantage of her money. Let's say I use or spend or misuse those resources in a way that's contrary to the law. I don't have the power of attorney to do so. You know, there's no medical diagnosis that says my family member I'm caring for is not fit to make these sorts of decisions. So that's one fraud. Then we have, counterfeit and cloned cards that are used to do frauds at retail establishments or online. We have stolen credit cards, pretty big stolen banks. Bank checks are making a big comeback. Fraudulent checks, written checks are making a big comeback.
Counterfeit money.
Counterfeit money, yeah. So pretty much anything where there's a fraud.
We do prescription frauds also, which kind of dropped off for a while, but it seems like it's starting to pick back up again for some reason or another. But whatever.
If it touches money or some way to do a document, a product, financial document, financial instrument, or any type of currency.
Okay, so we go out and do these meetings for groups like yourself to kind of just as an awareness piece. Pretty much because of the fact that if anybody belongs to the Peoria Facebook page, or I think it's even on Twitter page, any of the social media pages, our public information guy always puts out our stats every month for the amount of calls, what came in for the town. So pretty much consistently every month, identity theft and fraud is number 5 in the town for the most reported. There's some stats in here that are going to be like really, really astounding to you. It's a huge part. So fraud right now, according to the FBI, is actually the nation's fastest growing crime, with identity theft being the fastest category in that crime. Between 2018 and 2022, there have been over 3.26 million complaints of persons falling to victims to scams or fraud. The combined loss between 2018 and 2022 of $27.6 billion with a B. Arizona residents lost a combined $58,156,147 in 2022 from fraud alone. And in 2022, statewide, there were 10,040 victims of fraud. We have 7.3 million people in the state, so pretty good amount. Every 2 seconds, somebody's existing accounts are fraudulently used, and every 30 seconds, someone's identity is used to open up a new account. People always ask, is that accurate? Yes, it is, because that's a worldwide statistic. Think about it.
Okay. Yeah. So what I was thinking too on these, because this presentation alone would be a third part of an hour, so we'll probably just blast through some of these. If you want us to slow down on something, that way we can facilitate the other discussion. But if you want us to slow down on that, just call it. We'll do that. Okay. So the ID theft is, who doesn't know what it is? Who doesn't have some idea of what it is? Okay. So I've gotten a hold of some. In the military, we call it PII, your personally identified information, right? That stuff is demographically specific to you, your name, date of birth, home addresses, telephone numbers, medical information. If somebody gets a hold of those things and they use that to clone your likeness or to take over your life in a sense, usually for some sort of financial gain, right? They're trying to get an instrument some sort of financial instrument in order to enrich their life off of your identity. Okay, most victims don't even know. You'll see here in just a minute here, the really sad part is a lot for us. Our experience has been a lot of the ID thefts are usually somebody you know or something that's been close to your life. The effects of this is, you get denied for loans, housing, credit cards. We even had subjects who've been arrested on their siblings' warrants before. So it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
One thing to keep in mind with identity theft too, is the person does not need to be alive or even exist. You can assume a fake ID and that's technically considered identity theft. You can use a dead person's ID and that's still identity theft.
Yeah. This person doesn't even actually have to be a real person. I've been working on a lot, again, sort of as we increase the complexity of these financial crimes, I work on synthetic IDs. So somebody will, what's your name, sir?
Glenn.
Glenn, and what's your name?
Nancy.
Nancy, where do you live? What's your street address?
27688 North 125th Drive.
So today I'm gonna make an ID that has Glenn's name and date of birth on it, his driver's license and your address on it.
Yeah.
And somebody else's date of birth.
And somebody else's date of birth, and I created a synthetic ID for a person who in part is actually alive, right? Those are real places, those are real people, that's real data, but they don't exist anywhere, and the computers are not smart enough to know better right now.
I may be jumping ahead here, but artificial intelligence.
We could get into that. We
I'm
could get into that. In fact, I had
not sure the question I want to ask.
I feel an email regarding that. Let's just be blunt about it. We don't know what we don't know. You see it right now, and the prolific issue is it's taking over the art world, knocking out artists and musicians, right? And look what it can do just off of a basic set of pre-programmed parameters. I don't want to come do fear mongering with you. I just want to say I don't know yet. It'll be interesting to see if somebody flips that for nefarious reasons. I suspect they will. Go ahead.
I'm assuming in part the increase is happening due to all the technology we have, but in part is it happening because so many illegal people are in our country and they need IDs and.
Let me, there's two ways.
It's just a new way of doing it.
The technology has changed the tactics. Those tactics have become part of this trace. And yes, people steal the IDs, that's a fact. Because we'll run a person down with a name that doesn't even match the picture on the driver's license. And you're like, that doesn't make any sense, right? So then you start running it back, the SSN down, you start running the DL down, then you realize, then you finally go find this person's actual picture. You go, okay, yeah, this was a stolen ID, and used for work purposes.
Are you planning to talk a little bit about how to protect yourself with some of the services you can buy?
Yeah, we can talk about that, absolutely.
So real quick, just a question. How much do you think your name, date of birth, social security number goes for in the dark web? Everybody know what the dark web is? It's like the super scary thing. How much you think? $5. A little bit more. Okay. About $50. I can buy your social security number on the.
All of it, yeah, all of you.
Yeah. You can buy your bank account numbers on there, everything.
One last question. Does the department at all get involved with these cyber attacks on, like, you see it all around the country, hospitals, local government, where somebody takes over the computer system, and then basically says, pay us, or, we're gonna.
I can tell, say what I've seen. So what we've seen is business email compromises, or somebody gets inside the company's system and then they want to hold it. You wouldn't be surprised to know that most companies don't want that information getting public, but when they do, when it does come out, we usually are on the very back end of that, where somebody's trying to hold them ransom for some reason. To be fair, we are not involved at that state task force or federal level, because those necessary resources, technology-wise, only exist there. That answers your question. Go ahead.
Did that just happen to the Dallas Police Department?
I don't know. I'll have to read up that.
Here, I think, I want to say it was Lake Havasu, I think, a couple of years ago.
So business record, yes, back in the day, Rob likes to talk about back in, he's right, back in the day, people used to break into office buildings and steal your dental or medical records to have files to farm people's identity. But now that everything's online, it's actually more simple now, because you don't risk breaking physically into something, you just crack into somebody's computer. And you steal their hard drive information and move on. You have people at the store who, I don't see this so much anymore, and I haven't really read any reports just about it, but what they used to do is they used to get real close to hover by you at the Walmart and lean in and get a look at you putting in your PIN or trying to get your card information. Yeah, I'll do this, and you're gonna get a picture of his card and things like that. So it still happens. I think you're seeing more of a modified version of it now, where somebody's gonna lie in wait outside of an ATM and then do basically what amounts to a strong arm robbery. Something like that.
COVID kind of eliminated shoulder surfing because everybody's afraid of the big sneeze.
Yeah. If you guys don't already know, or if you haven't accepted the fact, I'm unfortunately a victim, and so is Mr. Brent here, the twice DOD and OPM federal government hacks, where we lost all of our IDs to China and to Russia. So every single person in this room has been compromised and breached. In fact, my partner and I had the dubious honor of discovering a massive Walmart breach that had 5 million customers get their data breached, but they didn't want that to get online, so they shut the case down. Only to find out a year later, that came out in the Wall Street Journal, that them, Target, Apple, all the majors had a 26 million person breach. Maybe some of you might remember this article. 26 million user breach. So everybody's stuff's out there. And to the gentleman's point, you asked a question about how to protect yourself, we'll get into that in just a moment. Theft of mail. I don't know if you guys have to worry about that so much here, but that mail theft thing is big. So you'll get people doing this scheme called mailboxing. They'll go around to those gang boxes and they'll break them open. They particularly would do like just the standalone boxes that can just open up normally and steal your mail out. And then just try to take your life over, create new IDs, create new accounts, and open up new.
We see here in town, we see an uptick in that around tax season. So trying to get their taxes mailed to their house still.
Rob, I'm gonna let Rob talk about skimming and shimming. It's really becoming a big problem. He's got a pretty major case right now, so.
So skimming credit cards or debit cards. So has anybody in here not heard of what skimming is? Right. So skimming is this. The bad guy comes up, they'll go to an ATM or they'll go to a point of sale, say it like Circle K. Okay. They'll put a device inside the machine that when you slide your card in, it'll actually capture the information that's on the magnetic strip on the back of your card, as well as your PIN. They come back, they retrieve that, they can then take that information. You won't even know it's there. They'll take that information with the aid of software that you can buy off of eBay. They can then take and dump that onto a blank hotel key, like a white card stock and magnetic strip. So anything with a magnetic strip, your cubic float card can be a credit card. They'll dump it onto that. Within about a minute, they have a fully functional credit card. They have all your information.
This past month alone, we've located 3 skimmers in Peoria.
Yeah.
Not to say how many that we haven't got. So it's happening here.
What he was talking about too, the device that goes inside those machines is called a shimmer. The skimmer is usually something that goes in a gas pump and wires in, or it's an overlay over the top of a Walmart or a Circle K, 7-Eleven type of deal. And you come up and it's got the little hood on it and the pin pad. What I typically like to do, if this goes along with protecting yourself, is I like to give that thing a good little jostle and see if it's gonna pop off, or if it doesn't look or feel right in some way, shape, or form. Maybe the depth of the screen doesn't look right. It looks off, it's distorted. It's because there's this overlay over the top of it, and it's all programmed and wired up to capture your data and store it on a little microchip on a motherboard underneath the keys. So yeah.
Is tapping?
Tapping is the best way right now.
Here,
Okay.
yes.
They have not figured out how to.
And the reason why is that's a very high level bit encryption. And in order to crack that, it would take their computer standing in front of that computer the better part of a year or more to crack that encryption.
Okay.
But it'll happen.
Yeah, it'll happen eventually.
It'll happen eventually.
So just pay attention, right? The tapping is the best way. tap.
Just on your part, it'll take you. But like Mike said, yeah, I'm doing a case right now. I've taken like 15 cases in the state of Arizona alone. Involving a Romanian group that was running around doing this. They were putting them inside ATMs. Right now, just in Arizona, it's probably over $1 million. So.
So the budget you put in, the skimmers, are they big?
No, they're all cobbled together, machined and shop.
There's someone big on, I mean. how-
Yeah, absolutely.
You can buy the parts online.
You said you're putting them inside the machine,
Yes.
so then they must have access to get in.
No. You can actually, it's called a deep insert skimmer on an ATM. So what they do is they actually can slide it in. And with the use of the card, it actually applies pressure. So when it pushes the card in, then you hit eject, and it has a little hook on it. So the card will actually eject, however, the deep insert skimmer will stay in. And that's what reason.
They've devised a little way to put it in and get it out.
So what's being done by the ATM manufacturer?
Nothing.
So we'd like to sit here and tell you that, but we've already run up against it with major companies and having conversations with them, with their security apparatus and saying, hey, what are you doing to protect your customers? And they're basically saying, everything we can.
It is cheaper to reimburse you than it is to go around and retrofit every ATM.
And that's that bean counting, right? That honestly, to be fair, that's that bean counting part where is it the cost of reimbursing you fiscally sound over grid? So it becomes a risk decision.
We have, later on in this presentation, there's actually pictures to show you consumer stuff.
I don't want us to talk about your case, about the business email company and phishing.
Yeah. So phishing emails, basically people posing as legitimate companies, asking for personal information. Anybody in here own a business? No? Did anybody own a business? Okay. So you would deal with other companies and whatnot for purchases, invoices and everything like that.
Right, and we did the phishing tests on our staff every month.
Okay. So I had a case last year involving a company out of California that was, when I got their bank statement, I was like, wow, these guys make a lot of money. They ended up getting a fake email from somebody that it appeared that they was actually the owner of the business, telling them to wire money into this one account. Now, had the employee actually looked, there was something different on the email. It would have tricked them, but because of the name, they just didn't bother to read everything entirely. They transferred $50,000 into this lady's account that was here in town, who in turn took that, converted it over into cryptocurrency, and then it's gone. So we deal quite a bit with that.
That was a business email company.
Yeah,
right?
it's a
So they
business
call it
email
BC.
company.
That's what the FBI terms it is.
So
that happens in the tens of thousands to the hundreds of thousands of dollars. There was a BEC that I was reading about maybe last year, was like 1.2 or something like that, with a major acquisition purchase.
yeah, Mike had one a couple of years ago with the doctor.
Yeah.
It was something like $300,000 and
$287,000 in €1,000. So he's not.
He made peace with it. I don't know if I'd make peace with that.
So
Like, we found the money went to worse, like, yeah.
Yeah. I physically tracked it all.
Yeah, I'd be tracking that person down.
So.
I think you got a question.
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought you had a question. I'm sorry.
So yeah, we could go into that, but let's move ahead. So the telephone scams, who's gotten the IRS was an outstanding. You need to pay it. We're gonna send the sheriff's. Listen, I guarantee you, the Peoria Police Department is not gonna come knock on your door and talk about your tax debt. You're overdue out of warranty vehicle, or anything like that, I promise you. So it's crazy. If you don't know who's calling you, I would just invite you, don't pick up the phone. If it's that important, it'll go to voicemail. If you listen to voicemail, you know the person, that's fine.
Don't give them any person.
Yeah, don't do that ever. I get the same guy for the last 6 years calling me from I'm calling you from the same guy because it's the same voice. It's maddening. 6 years now. I called him from the Police Benevolence Society.
Yeah.
I said, no, sir, I gave a church. Thank you very much. I'm all set. The guy doesn't listen to keeps calling back. He's clearly an American. He's got an American accent. But the persistence is what I'm
But
suggesting.
even if you block their call, they'll use another.
Yeah, there's spoof. That's
Yeah.
called number spoofing. But again, that's when I used to say, hey, answer it. You say, hey, be careful. Just don't answer.
Right.
If you don't know the number and it doesn't come up on your address, because everybody's address book has got a number linked to it, right? We should know, or we should have had the brains enough to put that in there. If you don't know, just let it go to voice. No harm.
Here's a little trick too. If you see it pop up on your screen, on your cell phone, and it has a plus sign, it's an out of country area code.
Or if it's an area code you've never lived at, just don't bother with
It's
it.
still an out of country area code.
I mean, like, they can spoof it where it looks like a local number.
Yeah, they do that too. Yep. And spoofing is typically just them using a dialer on a computer, it redials it and it forwards the call.
Yeah.
And it masks, and we will never be able to find out who that is, because I've tried running it back with search warrants and things like that. It's just not possible.
I thought you were switching, sorry.
Yep.
Oh, I was gonna just mention something about voicemail. Our kids said, switch it over not to your own voice because of AI being able to copy your.
Yeah.
Your
That makes
voice.
sense.
So use like an automated, leave a message at blah, 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 or whatever, and that might use your voice. Does that
If
make
you
sense?
do, all right, so touching on the AI thing, I don't know a lot about it. But here's what I will tell you. If you do end up talking to somebody and you determine like 30 seconds in that it's a scam, okay? Do not say yes or no. Just do mm-hmm. Because yes or no, they can technically, they could save your voice recording and
Right.
use that against you later on down the road.
Okay,
And so the way the AI works in the voice real quick, is the more letters you say and the more pattern of your speech that it acquires, the greater the volume of sentences it can recreate. For example, my son just showed me the most bizarre video that had Frank Sinatra singing a gangster rap song.
our son said,
Coolio, and it sounded exactly like Frank. I grew up listening to Frank Sinatra.
right, with the big band in the
It
background.
was ridiculous. You guys very carefully listen about 2 minutes in the song, and you could start to pick it up that it wasn't actually him, but it's frightening. So
Right,
just telling you what it can do.
So this kind of goes back to the whole thing of mailboxing, like Mike was talking about earlier. This is actually, swear to God, this came out of a search warrant a couple of years back. It just goes to show how bright this person is when you actually have to write down that you need to mailbox. And you need to take and walk around this entire neighborhood and hit as many mailboxes as you possibly can.
Second, Facebook Messenger.
Yeah.
Not your friend.
Here's what I'm gonna tell you, meth is a hell of a drug.
Gives you laser focus.
Yeah.
Except for when you're not high anymore. Then
Yeah.
you're just who you
And
are. So,
if anybody's an amateur detective, you can tell by the bubbly handwriting that is a female.
I'm a particular fan of the hearts. I love
very
it.
important to
Yeah.
do.
Yes.
At least she loves her job.
Yeah.
So. All right.
Facebook, yeah.
Moving right along. So the complaints and the losses, let's talk about real quick, hey, who at the bigger 50,000 foot level pays attention to this? Of course, it's FBI, Department of Justice, it's your state and then your local. Understanding that we have very limited resources as a law enforcement agency, we can't reach too far into the clouds above us. And if we don't have guidance from FBI, Department of Justice, there's some crimes we just can't tackle. Because we don't have the ability to do so, technologically speaking.
Or the manpower.
Yeah.
You're going to.
Yeah, never mind the manpower. Yes, exactly. So, the stats speak for themselves. Any questions on that? 2022, right? Ouchie. That's,
How many cases do you guys work at a time?
So our average caseload will be anywhere between, say, 15 to 30 normally for us. That's not counting the stuff
those are the ones we can look into. Let's
that we
qualify
look
that,
into.
so we can actually have a lead on. Yeah. But sir,
So, based on the chart, you're saying the number of complaints was reduced in the last year, but the amount of losses was higher.
Yeah,
So
because the
you're
reported
getting
losses
more
are growing. Yeah, the reported losses are growing. So let's talk about stats real quick, because anybody in this room understands I can make anything say what I want to say with stat. Here's the reality of it. These are the ones that are reported. Those are the losses that are reported that have gone to some level of fruition to actually validate that bottom number is relatively accurate compared to that number of complaints. Here's what him and I's experience is. That's probably double that. The complaints that are not even reported. Right, because most of the folks that we deal with, and it breaks my heart to say this to you, speak to this room, because it's all generally in the age group in which you guys sit, you know, highly intelligent, savvy people getting scammed out of tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars because they get caught in some ruse. And they're so convinced of it that they don't stop, ask somebody, a neighbor, a friend, a family. They just proceed, you know. And it particularly, I won't use colorful language since we're being videotaped. It's very frustrating to me that I grew up respecting my elders, and I don't like when people take advantage of aging people. It really is upsetting to me. So that's why I do what I do. I know Rob's got the same sentiment. So yeah. If you don't know, ask somebody. That's what that chart means to me, right? It's you doubt, if you have a moment of doubt that what you're doing is even above board, or it doesn't feel right, stop. What's the worst that's gonna happen? You don't wire $100,000 to somebody you don't know and never be able to get it back. Okay. So 10.3 billion victim losses 2022. Average complaints received daily. Average complaint received per year in the last 5 years. Over 7.3 million. These are FBI statistics if somebody wants to know in these papers. This is off their IC3. Yeah, IC3 unit. A lot of people think it is only the plus 60 crew. That's not true. It's they're putting the smackdown on everybody, but the important part I think that this chart shows is who ultimately has the largest sum of money amassed to lose, right? It's the folks who are retiring or retired, and now they're coming after your guys' nest eggs, right? So, but ironically, they're really taking a real hit. The under 20 crew is taking a real big hit, right? A lot of it has to do with what you mentioned earlier, that preteen, teenage ID theft. Because when you all were born and when I was born, I didn't get my social security number until I think a couple of weeks after I was physically born into the world. They give it to you right then when you're born in the hospital now. So some of you will recall, you guys didn't get your cards until you were older, or maybe a couple of years down the road when you made it out of being infants. That's not the case now. So they'll steal children's identities, they'll destroy their identity, and then the parents have to come in later and clean up that mess by the time they hit 10, 12. As soon as somebody starts asking for, hey, for enrollment, benefits, being part of a system or a government process, then they want to know. And then you usually find out.
What happens to a person's SS number when they pass away?
Great. Want to hear that one?
It's still assigned to that person.
I'm sorry.
It doesn't get reassigned.
I'm done.
No, your social security number is specific to you.
It will get recycled, but they'll usually do, he's right, what they'll usually do is they'll go a generation or two until your great grandmother or great grandfather has been dead 2 generations. There's no way, and they assume no assets can be reassigned. I only know that to be true because I had a case where I looked at an SSN and I was using a police database and it linked to a person that was born in the 30s. And then it jumped to a person who got acquired it in 2021, so which is weird. It didn't make sense to me, but then I realized when I called the SSN or the Social Security Administration what had happened. But technically, they're not supposed to be reassigned.
So who's committing crime? Are they individuals? Are they gangs, groups, or countries?
Yes to all.
Yeah, that's all about not being snarky. Yes, to all.
Family members, syndicates, I mean, everyone.
There's a Rob and I were in a briefing not too long ago for a governmental training. In India, they know the 2 specific buildings in this one town in this province that the instructor was telling us, I visited in India, and we were driving around, and the cab driver told me, he said, you see those two buildings right there? Those are the American fraud buildings. Those are the buildings that have all the people in there to steal money from the Americans.
I said there were like 20-story buildings.
Yeah, so what does that tell you, right? What does that tell you? It's highly organized. They're not dumb people, and they're not lucky. They know what they're doing. So you would think governments of the world, all over the world, would get more involved to want to stop that, but I don't have much to say on that, obviously. Yeah, it's not above my pay grade. Yeah, so.
So let me ask you this, how do you think that the people under the age of 20, how do you think their stuff ends up getting reported? Why does it get reported? Any idea? Everybody, majority of us in the room have kids? Okay. You have to apply for FAFSA for college. That's when it usually comes up. When you're 17 years old, that's when you realize they end up having to run a credit check on you. At that point, that's when they realize you've had a Kohl's card since you were 5. And it's very delinquent. So, yeah.
So we're getting the wave on, so we're gonna pick up the pace here a little bit. Telephone scams, again, I'm just gonna leave that. If you don't know who's calling you, if somebody calls up and says, Grandma, I'm in jail, don't say your favorite grandson's daughter's name. Yeah, that's right, it's Billy, Grandpa. Can you send me money? I'm in Mexico. You know, that sort of thing. Don't do that. And you guys are already know the other scams. If anybody calls me and says, hey, I'm gonna hold you hostage or extort you for some reason. I've got a family member hostage. I need you to go buy $5,000 in Walmart green dot cards or Apple gift cards and scratch them off. You don't do that. Don't do that. If you have a neighbor doing that, stop them. It's okay to be rude. Hang up. A government official or government agency is going to show up to your door, knock on your house with a warrant or some sort of badge and credentials to show you to talk about what they think you've done.
Or they're going to send you a
Or
letter.
they're going to send you a letter. Yeah, IRS is notorious for sending letters. We all know that. So yeah, we'll just jump on here. Oh, shredding your documents is important. Crisscross shredder is very important. We don't see too many trash rips anymore. Trash rip means people come by and rummage through your garbage. You guys are a little more safe in this controlled neighborhood, but it can still happen. So just crisscross shred all your data.
So this is how you stop being an ID theft. Okay. Request a free credit report each year. My wife does it every time we file our taxes for myself, her, and both of my kids. It's free. Why not? Doesn't ding your credit at all. And if you want a mansion in Borneo, you'd like to know that you own that, right?
Freecreditreport.com.
Yeah. Use strong passwords and PIN numbers in all financial accounts and change them often. I get it. It's a pain in the ass. Mike and I both have pages of password numbers that need to be changed like on a monthly basis, it seems like, and I'm like, whatever, just pick one. But
And also don't store his passwords in your computer.
yeah, so your password should not be password or
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
You can if you have a good browser. I used to think just like you
Okay.
did.
All right.
But I like to use the ones where the browser generates this crazy
Yeah.
unintelligible
Yes.
password.
Right.
And then I'll save it and I'll write them down or I'll take a picture with my phone and just hold on to it.
Okay, so it's okay to have it on your
You
phone.
can, again, this just goes to save computer usage at home and we could have a big conversation about that if you want.
Make sure you mail, if you still mail bills from your house, go to the post office and don't be lazy and store it in your mailbox. That kind of goes back to the whole thing with mailboxing. People do still send checks out, especially our elderly community here in town. They do send checks out to family members for birthdays and whatnot. Next thing you know, that check gets washed. And the bad guy is now writing a check to themselves for $10,000. So that's one thing.
Ladies, real quick, because it's really important. Please don't take your Patagonia backpack that doubles as a purse around when you don't need to take that anymore because they're getting stolen out of grocery carts. They're getting IDs are getting stolen. The entire the pocketbooks are getting stolen. Take only what you need, your ID, a credit card, a debit card, whatever, in a little slim one, put it in your pocket. Just save yourself that headache. because it's happening pretty regularly now. And those are more brazen bold crimes where people do a crime on a person in person, so.
And don't advertise to people online that you're away from your house.
Yeah.
People do that all the time as far as they'll put pictures up of vacations, like pretty much while they're still there. If your profile is public on Facebook or Twitter, I can pretty much search.
And you forget to turn off the geotagging every time you
Yes.
use Insta or TikTok or whatever it is you guys use in, in your community.
TikTok.
Right? You forget to turn off the geotagging that says you're not home. Or it says links back to your profile and it says where you're home. So it's scary stuff. So when you go online, lock your stuff in. Yeah, I think we covered more or less all those.
You don't need to carry your 5th grade report card in your wallet with you. At least I got
Or
all
your shot record, leave that alone. Yeah. One thing he taught me actually, which I thought was brilliant, that I never thought about before. Photocopy all of your IDs and your credit cards, so in case you do lose your ID or your wallet or whatever, you have those back at home. Because you're gonna be freaking out. Everybody, that's a normal human reaction. I lost my wallet or somebody stole it from me out of the mud. You can now go back home after the initial incident, pull all those things out and start calling the providers, all to lock everything down. Yeah.
That's real important when you travel. too.
Yes. Yep.
One thing, going back to checks also, so if anybody does still write checks, I know there's certain businesses, like if I have somebody come out for doing repair work, they usually like check over credit card because of the fees. Write that check in a gel tip pen. Here's why you do it in a gel tip pen. Because if it's a regular ballpoint, like a Bic or whatever, that just writes on the surface. It actually doesn't impregnate the ink into the fibers of the pen or the paper. So I can take then and I can wash that check, which is really easy. All I have to do is spray acetone over top of it, dip it, or spray hairspray over top of your signature, dip it into acetone, pull it up. If it's a ballpoint, it'll literally, the ink will run right off and I have a clean check with your signature. If it's a gel tip pen, it smears the ink all over the check and renders it useless.
And now what I'll do is I'll take now I'm gonna take it to the next step. I'm gonna take your check. I'm gonna scan it in. I'm gonna buy the exact same card stock, check stock. And I'm going to digitally remove your signature from it. Or I'm gonna copy your signature and I'm gonna take the 2-line and make it to me, and then I'm gonna increase that dollar amount. It's still gonna retain your signature. I'm gonna reprint it. The bank doesn't even look because they don't care. And frankly, sorry, but they just don't look that hard. And I'm gonna slip it through the normal deposit system. Everything's good as gold. I get my money, you're out your money. So
So it's really not safe.
I would avoid writing checks me personally unless you know the vendor you're writing to. We'll get your questions. And then we'll go, that's who you, only ones you write to. I don't just write checks willy-nilly. I tend to do a lot of electronic payments, so, which is dubious too. All right, first, Sheldon.
Yeah, do you have an opinion on the effectiveness of these programs that are advertising when you buy ID protection?
Yep. I will talk about that in just a second. I didn't forget about you. Go ahead, sir.
Phil, the use of Phil, how do you feel that? If we write to repeat checks,
Yep.
we'd rather have a supplier gives that transfer.
Zell's an intermediary.
Yep, just know who you're dealing with and make sure that who you're dealing with, you didn't get your business email compromised or some other weird type of distractor that makes you take your eye off the ball. Just make sure for sure who you're sending to. The problem is with Zelly and Venmo and those things, once it's gone, and you're gonna play hell trying to get that money back because the bank goes, well, it's just an intermediary. It's a cash business intermediary. We don't manage it. We don't own it. You should have known who you sent the money to, and they're right. But it doesn't mean it's still not fraud. So
Fairly secure though. basically.
yeah, it's all secure. Yeah.
The problem with Zelle and Venmo is, at least from our experience, if you send money to somebody on that and it turns out to be fraud, the bank is less apt to refund your money to you because you are a willing participant in sending that money.
Let's talk about the a lot of research in this, and since I've had my taken a couple of times on that, and had to do all the damage control on that. Please understand that most of those ID protection companies are in some way affiliated with the big three: TransUnion, Experian, or Equifax, right? They're either a subsidiary of, they're owned and operated by, or they were the brainchild of that company. So they only work to a limited data that's supplied to them. What does that mean? I cannot stop you from getting frauded in real time. I can only tell you as it's happening or after it's happening. So buyer beware, use it to whatever way you think it'll benefit you. I'm not going to persuade or dissuade you on that when you appropriate, but just know its limitations, understand its limitations. I do think it's interesting that some companies offer the credit and identity repair, you know, for XYZ amount of dollars. I think that's great if that works. I've never tested it, and I've never known anybody who's had to have to use that, and it's been successful. So I can't speak to that properly. But yeah, just go and keep your eyes open, look at it, and see if that's something that is right for you.
How about putting a credit freeze with the big three? You can go online and actually do it.
I can actually talk about that. So the only way they will give you a proper freeze anymore, and what I mean by that is a legitimate lockdown, is if your complaint is associated with the police report number from your jurisdiction. Okay, I have this police report number. Otherwise, what they'll do is they'll put a credit stop, right, where you put some sort of password or something on there. Because mine got stolen, I put a password on mine and nobody can open the credit without my approval. So that's how you would accomplish that. Difference between a freeze and a stop.
They put a freeze up for 6 months.
6 months or a year. Yeah.
There's also a credit law.
Well, different companies use kind of like these different type of languages that freeze and lock. It's basically the same thing. Okay. Yeah. So
I put a freeze on mine. And like I went to buy some big thing at Home Depot and they save $100 if you open a Home Depot card. So I can't even open a Home Depot card because it's locked.
So that's
I'm not even sure how to unlock.
yeah. So what you have to do is you call them and you put your number on file. They will literally call you because I was at Ashley buying a piece of furniture and they called me while I was at the Ashley's desk applying for their 0% down for 60 months. That you know those usual schemes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they called me right there while I was standing there at Ashley, and I gave approval over the phone to
So they mean
transfer.
Well, but they also wanted his social security number, and then he's like, forget it.
Any other questions on the credit stuff? Larry has said, hey, we gotta stay on timeline, we want to stay on timeline. Now, gun club stuff, you want to talk about gun club stuff, always. All right. Go ahead.
No, I was, one of the things we were curious about is what kind of concealed lethal and non-lethal weapons do you suggest for people?
Okay, that's a pretty personal question, but I'll qualify my experience a little bit so you understand I'm not just up here with problems. So, longtime military firearms instructors, small and medium arms. So I understand what certain things will and won't do. I also happen to be a taser instructor and a pepper ball instructor. Pepper ball is a great tool. If you're not, I'll go from least effective to a weapon system, okay, a proper gun, okay. Pepper ball is a great system if you don't want to pack around a pistol, you know, with bullets and maybe you don't feel comfortable with that. And they now make them, several companies make them, the company Pepperball, another company named Burn, there's several out there that make these. They look like toy guns from when we were plastic toy guns when we were kids, but they ain't a joke. They are CO2 powered. They shoot a 68 caliber Pepperball, and the Pepperball is made of capsaicin that is the hottest pepper on earth. And they'll do different concentrations of it. The stuff that we use in the police department is made by a company called Pepperball. It's called 5X. It's 10 times hotter than just the regular pepper balls that you see out on the road. Because even though what paintball is, it's the same type of condition. But it's put instead of that gel case with paint in it, it's plastic, a very thin plastic case that's very highly engineered to fly straight and even. And when you get hit with that stuff, it is the devil. It's hot. It's incapacitating. So if you like the idea of carrying something that's for personal self-defense, but you don't necessarily want it to be a pistol, a firearm, that is one way of getting there. I don't advocate for tasers, even though I'm a taser instructor. This is not a knock on taser. I'm just saying I know from personal study and from their own information they've given me. The taser's effectiveness in an emergency situation is not as good as a firearm or something that has a kinetic impact. Okay. Again, I'm not deeming tasers. I believe in their product, but it has specific applications where it's more effective and less kinetic. Well, you can buy them. You can go right on Amazon right now and find yourself a pepper ball pistol. Okay, and yeah, all that stuff's open to any of the civilian community that wants to buy it. There's plenty of videos of civilians using it on their ring cameras. Somebody's trying to break in their house, and they come out with a pepper ball and they shoot it. And the person's like, "Oh, I've been shot," because they had that kinetic impact feel, and then they start choking and popping. And they realize I haven't been properly shot with a pistol. But oh my gosh, my face is on fire and I can't breathe properly. It's effective, right? It's effective. So I have used red and 9mm, 92 series, 92F, 92F, FS. For my personal carry, I carry multiple different ones from blocks to 6. I like 6 personally because I really appreciate their trigger. We carry blocks for duty, so all of us are trained to that. We also have revolvers, all the stuff revolvers. So it kind of depends on what do you want to accomplish, what's your comfort with the system, and what's your desired end state, right? Are you a person that thinks that more bullets is better, or do you feel effective with the system? You know, it's a 5-round revolver, and you feel good with that. Are you looking to actually use it? Is really, there's a philosophy of use here that I taught in the military was taught. You never bring a gun out unless you intend to have to use it. So as a responsible gun owner, I could not say that any more clearly, right? You're going to take a gun out, you're going to use it. That's your intent. You need to use it according to the law to protect your life or somebody else's life. And why would you use a revolver versus a 7? Just depends on what you're comfortable with. My wife loves a revolver, and she can get out of shot with it. Yeah, and she's frighteningly good with it.
Unless chance of it jamming.
Yeah, there is that too. If you didn't like semi-automatic, that's good for you.
Cause I would carry a little 38 on me, because I know it's under jam.
Yeah,
I put it in my pocket. I don't like to show what I'm carrying. I always conceal, so.
and it's good for very close contact. The thing that a semi-automatic will do that the revolver won't is it won't get knocked out of battery during its reload cycle. So a revolver, you can be very close and have a very close contact. Whereas if you do that with a revolver and you touch or you touch a semi-automatic to the target, and the target comes in contact with your semi-automatic knocked out battery, which means you have a failure to load or a failure to feed. You got to do a reload drill to get the gun back into battery.
I just have a question about, it's like a box that locks between your front seat and soul area. Are those? I mean, someone just mentioned it to me, because I don't picture myself, carrying something.
When you guys want to answer this?
I
So
don't,
like a lockbox in your car?
yes, that you put,
I mean, can you get you a quick read for the
I
emergency?
know, that's,
And you gotta practice what you play with. So if you feel comfortable and you can get to it quick in a timely manner, I mean, that's something, again, personal. I probably wouldn't do that unless, I don't like leaving a gun in the car because people break in cars all the time, now they have a free gun.
Unless that thing's
And they use it
bolted
as
to
a
the
frame.
frame. Yeah. they could pry one.
Right.
and open that up.
Yeah, I'm not a big
I
fan
just
of
was
video
not
shots in cars.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've just taken too many stolen gun reports. So I but I just can't, I just don't see that necessarily. Unless you're from some hunting community and you got your empty shotgun in the back rack on your way to go deer hunt or something, or ski shooting or whatever. I just can't imagine. Yeah, and if you can't get to it quick, what's the point of it?
No.
Yeah.
100%.
And I would absolutely ask you to consult a lawyer, the internet, all sorts of stuff. To have that conversation, right? If you're trying to defend your life, there's very little you can't do. So. Is there a particular set model that you're? Oh, I told Larry this in email, I cannot advocate for one particular company or brand or model, but I sure love the D365. Yeah, you know, who doesn't want 13 rounds in a single magazine?
You carry the scan, the 365 or 365.
I don't carry gas, it was carrying the second gen of the push model of the other. So when they fixed the trigger for the view. Yeah, I really like that. And, you know, it's got nice sights mounted on it and they're very bright and you can see them and, you know, it's just great. The way the system shoots, for semi-automatic, it doesn't clink forward too hard or clink back too hard. It's a very smooth system. It reminds me a lot of like Loretta because of the weight of it, the weight of the balance. So with ladies, if you don't mind them singling you all out, the biggest issue is getting over that initial shock. That's number one. I taught a lot of ladies, to get my instructorship. I did teach a bunch of accountants from the FBI, and they were all ladies who weren't comfortable with this big 40 caliber gun that the FBI had given them. My goal was to qualify them. I had to wall them, or else I didn't pass my instructor. So we spent all day out there, just like everybody else did. But once they got over that initial fear, they were going to go. They were frighteningly accurate. Why is that? Because the muscle groups in a woman's hand is actually finer and more articulate than a man's, because men built what we're built for fighting, right? It takes a lot of training to get us to not muscle something down and refund it, where a woman just lets their gun go off in her hand and it shocks it and resets. They would impart a lot of muscle control data stuff that we can't see what it's supposed to do. So I think these actors. So that's the my wife can shoot a Pepsi can from 20 yards away with a revolver. So I couldn't do it, save my life.
Do you recommend like starting with the 22 at a shooting range just for practice and cheap ammo and all that?
Sure, but what's your investment? I like to think of things from what's my investment standpoint, right? If you're gonna go out and.
Well, just for me to feel a little more.
Sure. If, there's a couple companies that make semi-automatic 22s, 22 long rifles, and then there's other they make the semi-automatics and they make the revolvers. Just depends on what you want to use it for, right? And what your ultimate goal is. Do you want to carry 9mm for protection when you're on the road? Because that's pretty much the standard. It's funny because it was 9mm first, and we went to 40 and 357s, and then we went back to 9mm now. So depends. Rob, you got any thoughts on the real gun things that you carried on for so long? 38, a lot of them carry 38s. Yeah. 38 specials plus P with the extra powder loaded.
In New York City, we were not allowed to have a hammer on our guns. So it was actually a hammerless 38.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Smith and Wesson makes the A model 642, which is a airweight. It's a titanium frame hammerless. I like that because it won't get caught in the hand tag. It won't be caught in your belt loop. I'm a fan of that one as well. I own a couple of those. So
as long as the cylinder can spin, you can fire.
yeah.
So can you just review again or restate the non-lethal, okay, I get taser, I guess it's out. Okay, pepper gun is an idea, but you mentioned something of like 5X.
Oh, Livex is the type of pepper ball round, the actual munitions. The
Live
X.
X.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And there's, so if you find a company, they're really expensive too, by the way. They're insanely expensive. They're about $3.75 a ball. So, but you get what you pay for. It's pretty good. And there's other companies that make them as well. Go ahead, sir.
You need a license for pepper ball gun or no? Can you carry?
Totally open. Can you carry? Absolutely. Now, let's talk about the law in the state of Arizona because it's very important to talk about this. My boss is standing here. If you're gonna pop that thing out, you're gonna use it on somebody, understand it's an aggravated assault. If you use it on them and you didn't have the proper justification in doing so, why is that? Because it looks like a pistol, a handgun. It simply is a handgun, and you fired a chemical irritant on somebody, and they've now become affected. It's the assault, but it's the aggravation that you use the chemical irritant on.
And I don't understand.
So be prepared to articulate why you did it.
Versus pepper spray, where if you're in a room where somebody's used pepper spray, everybody's,
Oh,
you know, everybody's gonna be
Okay.
doing. Does the ball keep more of a?
It hits you exactly like a bullet does. So what it does is it hits you, it explodes, and it hits a target, it explodes, it makes about a 15 to 20 foot cloud around them,
Okay.
and then it starts to dissipate. Now, let's not disqualify that. You're gonna get a little something in your mouth and your nose, and you're gonna know you get it if you're in close proximity to everybody else in that close proximity. But it's not like pepper spray where you just hose the whole room down and everybody sucked, yeah.
The old days.
We ended up purchasing like a pepper gel.
Yeah.
And that's something that squirts red, but I don't know if it's as effective in your.
Anything in that pepper spray, bear spray category, any of those, that's just the worst for humans, yeah, so I mean, it's effective.
Okay.
Just make sure it's got reach and go out and test
Yeah.
it, that's the only thing any of us would tell us.
Make sure it's not.
Yeah, because they do expire after 5 years, I think.
Probably don't right up.
Yeah.
That was their house first, that's.
Yeah.
You know, if you wanted to do something that's not offensive to them, you could go up to the store, up to the hunting store, you know, Cabela's, and get coyote urine or something like that and just spread it around. That would tend to push, they have various different types of non-lethal, less lethal solutions that you can put something down on the ground to drive them, keep them away. They're not gonna come up with some.
What are we talking about? Keep what?
Coyotes and bobcats, things like that.
Well, let's thank our speakers for a great, and they'll hang around for a little bit, but we'll have to leave the room in about 10, 15 minutes for somebody else. Thank you so much, John. Appreciate it. Thank you. Don't forget, next month, we're doing an outing at Scottsdale Gun Club. It's, I think the 28th, I think. It's in their virtual lane, which means simulator SIGs and simulator Glocks. You don't bring guns, you don't need ear or eye protection. It's going to be a virtual range experience. It's going to be at 10 o'clock. So if you're interested, let me know. We're trying to get at least 10 people. I have at least 7 signed up so far. Thanks very much.
Unsolved, that's all right.
Yeah, I know, I have, it's all right, I got it. Thank you.
So long. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming. So long, Jim.
That's the,